It's Steve Thomason, and this video is starting a brand new series that I'm calling Drawing Through Luke. Now, I'm a preacher, a pastor, and an artist, and I like to take my two passions of art and teaching and fuse them together to create visual resources to help preachers both study the Bible and to present the scripture in a compelling way to their congregation or Bible teachers to their students. So I follow the Narrative Lectionary, which is a way of working through the scripture in a preaching sequence. The Narrative Lectionary is divided into 4-year cycle, and each year keys off of one of the 4 Gospels. And so 2 years ago, we preached through Matthew. And so I got this idea that I would draw a comic book page for every text that we preached on. But I didn't want to just skip sections. So I decided to do the entire Gospel of Matthew. And then I ended up putting it into a print format. And it was so much fun that I decided to do it again last year. And so last year we preached through the Gospel of Mark. And so I did the same thing. I drew a comic book, graphic novel style illustration for every passage in the Gospel of Mark. Well, this year is year 3 in the Narrative Lectionary. So I want to do it again. But I thought it would be kind of fun to make a video for you to watch and just kind of dive into the process of what goes into making these. And I thought maybe we could study the text together. So each week I will look at a different passage and I'll talk about the passage itself. And then I'll talk about the making of that page, drawing that page. But this video is just kind of an introduction to the Narrative Lectionary itself and to the beginning stages of starting to map out one of these books. So I'm going to make my screen a little bit smaller so you don't have to look at me like that, because really what's interesting is what's going on online and on the tools that I'm using. So first of all, let's start at the very beginning. What is the Narrative Lectionary? So the Narrative Lectionary was started at Luther Seminary here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And that's where I got my PhD, by the way. So I'm fond of this institution of learning. And the Narrative Lectionary is part of a larger website called workingpreacher.org. But if you go to your website and you type in narrativelectionary.org, it will take you to this page. And so it always defaults to the current week. That's its homepage. But there was always a PDF link over here that you can go to. And so we are looking at the Narrative Lectionary for 2020-21, readings for year 3, the Gospel of Luke. Now we're currently in the fall, and what the Narrative Lectionary does is it always starts in September in Genesis and works through the Hebrew scripture chronologically until we come to Christmas. And then at Christmas time, we dive into the Gospels. Well, this year's Luke. And so Luke is the slam dunk for Christmas because that's the story of the Nativity. And we end up doing Luke every Christmas. But let's see. You can check out, let me zoom in on this a little bit. And this is the official Narrative Lectionary reading schedule. And so you see on December 13th, it ends with Isaiah 61. Then on December 20th, which is the 4th Sunday of Advent, we start with Luke 1, and we start with verse 26. And so then we go through all of the Gospel of Luke, not every single passage, but we skip through, but still chronologically for the most part, through the Gospel of Luke all the way until the 2nd Sunday of Easter, which is April 11th. And then it jumps into the book of Acts. So that is the Narrative Lectionary itself. Now, before I dive into how I'm going to map out the Gospel of Luke, I just want to remind you of what the end product is that we're shooting for here. So if you go to cartoonistbible.com, this is the homepage for cartoonistbible.com, and you can either click here on this interactive bookshelf or click on this menu item, the bookshelf. And this is an interactive image, and there are cartoons, animations, written commentary, and links to other online resources for every book of the Bible. And this is my ever-expanding library of visual resources for the Bible. But I want to just hone in on this one, the Gospel of Mark, because it's not just something that's in print. It is actually first and foremost a digital resource for you. And so this is the homepage for Mark, and this again is also an interactive image. Each one of these boxes represents a separate page of the graphic novel of the Gospel of Mark. Now, every single one of these pages has a PowerPoint that you can use to project during your sermon or during a scripture reading or during a lesson where you're teaching the passage, that takes you panel by panel, word balloon by word balloon. And there's a downloadable PDF where you can just print one page at a time. And this is our quick links to those things. But let me just show you. I'm going to, I think I'll choose the Transfiguration. If we go to chapter 8, I'll just jump to this page and show you how it works. It's pretty fun. I like it, obviously, because, you know, I'm making it. So on each one of these pages, you'll be able to see the actual page that is in the printed book right here on the website. And you can preview the PowerPoint. And you can see how it goes panel by panel, and then word balloon by word balloon, all through the whole page. Boom! The Transfiguration. And then he's all alone. So you can download this PowerPoint and also get a compressed file that has all the JPEG images separately, and you can use them in whatever presentation you want to use. And the purpose for this is it's just a fun and compelling way to quickly walk through the text so that your congregation or your students are engaged in the text while you're either reading the whole text or just summarizing the story, and they can live into it rather than just hearing words maybe in a monotone way. Sometimes, you know, scripture reading can get a little dry. And then if you scroll down, there's also commentary on each of these pages, so you can dig a little deeper. And I quite often will put in links to Bible Project videos or other podcasts or resources to help you with that page. So anyway, that's the end goal. So what I want to do with the Gospel of Luke is I want to create all of these resources for you in the Gospel of Luke. So step one of this process is I take all of the passages that the Narrative Lectionary prescribes for us, and I bring it into my Bible software. Now, I use Logos Bible Software, Logos, and the main reason I use Logos Bible Software is because I have been using it since 1994. Oh yeah, when it first came, when Windows 3.1 or whatever Windows first came out, I got the Logos software where I had the little 3/4 inch discs. I had to pop them in my computer and load it all in, and I have just evolved with this software, and I love it because mostly for the ability to quickly study original languages. But it also has some really cool note-taking features in it. And I create a notebook here, and I've called it Luke 2021 NL for Narrative Lectionary. And I created a note for each of the Narrative Lectionary texts. And you put in an anchor in the software. And when you click on the anchor, it takes you to the text. And then I color-coded it right here. I color-coded it green. And so if you scroll through the the Gospel of Luke, all the green texts are the actual narrative lectionary texts that we'll be preaching on. And then I took all of the gaps between the narrative lectionary texts and I color-coded them orange. And you'll see that the very first verses of Luke we skip over right away. And so now I went through the whole gospel, all of the readings, and I color-coded that. So as I scroll through the gospel like this, you'll see that there are big gaps. And since I want to do the entire gospel and not just the narrative lectionary passages, one of my first challenges is going to be, how do I create a page just for the narrative lectionary that can be used as a presentation for that sermon? And how do I fill in the gaps and make sense out of it? All right, well, that is the first step, just getting all of the passages color-coded in my Bible software. In the next episode, I'll talk about how I start taking that and breaking it down into pages and panels and bringing it into my iPad for starting to draw the passages. But that's next episode. So thanks for watching this first episode of Drawing Through Luke. I hope that you'll check back in and we'll see how this project unfolds as we get ready to preach through Luke this year in the Narrative Lectionary. All right. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time. Hey, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and thanks for joining.